continue to fail us. They fail us as workers, and they fail us as a community. We're fighting for universal PPEs. We're fighting for equitable pay. And we're fighting for the respect and dignity that we deserve. That's why across Illinois, 4,000 clerical, professional, technical, and service and maintenance workers are ready to stand alongside INA. You know how much caring we had in our hearts to take care of patients when we didn't know where the virus was coming from and what it was going to wreak on our society. We stepped up. We came to those hospitals and we gowned up and we took care of patients. We saved UIC. And so now it's time for UIC to save us. We deserve better. We deserve better. Our pledge to you is that we got your back. All that we ask of you is that you have each other's back. Because these folks will take advantage of you. They will take all that you got, including your life. Right? So, we ain't playing.
We ain't playing.
The game is up.
It's up.
For 15 months, we have sat at the bargaining table. For 15 months, we have made no progress. Time and time again, UIC has said that we are heroes, but they treat us like we're disposable. I'm here to say that my life has worked. Your life has worked. And it's time for UIC to demonstrate that our lives have worked. We stepped up during the pandemic. We worked longer shifts. We went to different units. We did jobs that we weren't hired for. We were in transport. We stepped up. And now it's time for UIC to do the same. It's time for them to pay us. It's time for them to protect us. It's time for them to respect us.
And we don't get them. And we don't get them. Get down. Chicago is a union town. Get up. Get down. Chicago is a union town. Get up. Get down. Chicago is a union town. Get up. Get down. Chicago is a union town. Get up. Get down. Chicago is a union town. Get up. Get down. Chicago is a union town. We have stalled negotiations. We organized. While they participated in bad faith bargaining, we organized. And when they continue to disrespect us in a contract fight with global pandemic, we organized.
That's right.
That's why we stand ready to shut this place down.
All right.
Till we do what we long deserve, management should be prepared for no workers on campus.
Right. That's
We
right.
are united, we are passionate, and we are committed to the fight.
That's
We
right.
will stand and we will not back down until UIC comes through with me.
73 workers from the UIC hospital that fought COVID and then heroically went on strike, along with 5,000 co-workers to demand PPE, hazard pay, and respect for Black, Latinx, and Filipino workers and nurses. In Chicago, we're involved with the Chicago Alliance, of course, in the CTU, Black Lives Matter, in the Teamsters Union, in the Arab community, in the student movement, and the anti-war and international solidarity movement. So just a few things for you all tuning in at home. First, share the live stream. In fact, I invite you to do it right now as I'm speaking. Press the share button. We want to make sure that people from all corners of cyberspace can see this stream. And this event is also a fundraiser, so be sure to donate. The URL is tinyurl.com/PPLTHX2020, or click the link in the chat. And there's also a link in the chat for you to fill out a sign-in sheet. Definitely be sure to sign in. FRSO hosts events throughout the year, and signing up is the best way to learn more about the upcoming events that we're hosting. And finally, tweet about us. We love to be featured on Twitter. Tweet about the People's Thanksgiving using hashtag People's Thanksgiving 2020.
Thank you. We also wanted to note this evening what is the People's Thanksgiving and our purpose for being here tonight. And so this event is not about celebrating Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving tells a myth to cover up the genocide, displacement, and enslavement and death of indigenous people at the hands of European settlers. We want to be firm that we do not celebrate colonialism. We reject the Thanksgiving myth, and we acknowledge the atrocities committed towards indigenous people and stand in full solidarity with their struggles. This event is about honoring the freedom fighters who are also fighting against colonialism, imperialism, white supremacy, and capitalism. All of our award winners have won games for working class people.
And we have so many great activists and fighters for the people here tonight, and we are excited to get this program started.
Thank you. Kicking us off this evening, I want to introduce Jada Van. Jada is an activist with the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. They are also a member of Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Please welcome Jada Van.
The next organization we honor has been at the forefront of the movement against police on campus at University of Illinois at Chicago. After the murder of George Floyd, they acted quickly to connect concerned students and student organizations, putting together weekly calls to serve as a networking and organizing space to build student power. From this effort came a powerful, open letter to the UIC administration in honor of Juneteenth, demanding divestment from the police and investment in students, especially investment in students of oppressed nationalities. Throughout the summer, this organization also led efforts for several more digital campaigns directed at both the UIC admin and the University of Illinois Board of Trustees, plus a demonstration outside of UIC Chancellor Michael Emeritus's university-owned and funded home. These efforts culminated in the founding of the Good Trouble Coalition, an interdepartmental coalition intended to foster collaboration between like-minded students and coordinate action across UIC to pressure the university to divest from police. We present this award to the Black Graduate Student Association at UIC. We commend and congratulate them for work in this fight. Accepting this award on behalf of the Black Graduate Student Association at UIC is Alexis Grant, the organization's president and one of the driving forces behind their leading role in the movement at UIC. Alexis, thank you for being here to accept this award, and thank you for the hard work in the fight to get the cops off campus. It is my honor to present to you the W.B. Du Bois Award. Excuse me. It is my honor to present the W.B. Du Bois Award to Alexis Grant of the Black Graduate Student Association at UIC for fighting against racism and state violence on campus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor, and just thank you for the recognition of the work that we've been doing. As a group of Black graduate students on campus, we're a minority of the UIC population, to say the least. We are grateful for this recognition, and on behalf of our executive committee, which also includes Cherie Garrett, Joshua Adkins, Sarah Malone, and myself. And I would also like to thank Ash Stevens, who is one of the Black graduate students who had an instrumental role in drafting the student demands. And we also thank the numerous allies we've found both within and outside of UIC with other student organizations, academic departments, faculty, staff, and students from across the university. Without all of this support, we would not be able to keep up this momentum and have done all that we have done so far. And as we know, racism is not confined to the criminal justice system. It's embedded in so many other systems like education, healthcare, and systems of employment. of which UIC is all of those things. They run an institution of higher learning, hospitals, community health centers, outreach centers, research centers, and so much more. And since this wave of activism of 2020 has started, we've seen so many companies and institutions change their branding and add their diversity initiatives. And we really need and expect more than lip service to the cause. And we expect a complete overhaul of the way that UIC does everything. So we have this hope for our institution, and we're grateful for all the support. And that's really why we do what we do, to see the world change. So we thank you again, and we're grateful to be here to celebrate all the small wins with all of you and continue pushing on for the radical transformation of our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again. That was a very good speech. Thank you. So normally we have this event every year, and it's in person, and we're chanting, and we're having a good time, and unfortunately we are over Zoom, but I still want to make sure that folks are interactive and folks are still here with us. So my next speaker that I'm going to introduce is Frank Chapman, and I want you to drop hashtag CPAC now in the chat if you support CPAC and if you support the work of the Alliance as I'm introducing Frank. Frank is the field organizer of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. In 2009, he and Angela Davis convened the conference to reestablish the National Alliance. Frank was elected the executive director of the National Alliance during the conference. He's also published his memoirs, The Damned Don't Cry. So everybody, give it up for Frank and keep putting hashtag CPAC now in the comments.
All right, good evening, everybody. My pleasure and honor to be here. Also my honor to present the Emma Tanyuka Award to Emma Lozano for her outstanding leadership in the Chicano community. Emma has headed up the Central Sin Fronteras Organization since 1987. She's the sister of Rudy Lozano, her brother, who was assassinated in 1983 for his work building the unity between black and brown communities that brought about the victory of the first black mayor of Chicago, Harold Washington. Their first program was to defend the rights of undocumented Mexican immigrants. From Sin Fronteras came Familia Latina, UNITA, that began the new sanctuary movement with Elvira Arellano taking refuge in a church to resist her deportation and separation from her child, a U.S.-born child. Ever since, Sin Fronteras has played a leading role on issues ranging from school reform to legalization of the undocumented. They currently work on the Right to Family campaign to bring the 12 million undocumented families and workers out of the shadows. Tanya Lozano, who's also the daughter of Emma Lozano, is an activist, health advocate, and community architect battling the many challenges affecting black and brown communities. As founder of Healthy Hood Chicago, Tanya helps organize a network of 1,000 volunteers for food and masks, free COVID and HIV testing, as well as voter registration and census filing. She will be receiving the award on behalf of them. On May 30th, in response to the call by the National Alliance, Tanya coordinated the caravan of 1,000 cars that started in Little Village to join the protest in the loop of 4,000 cars, which started the rebellion in this city against police crimes sparked by the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others. Now about the person that the award is named after, Emma Tanyuka. Emma Tanyuka was a Chicana labor organizer in Texas in the 1930s and 40s, and a member of the Communist Party. So on behalf of Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Tanya, I want to present this award to you, and it is my honor and pleasure to do so.
Thank you so much, Frank. I'm honored to accept this recognition for my mother, Emma Lozano, this well-deserved recognition for the incredible work of her organization, Centro Sin Fronteras. My work with Healthyhood and the We Got Us initiative is just an extension of the morals and values that she instilled in myself. I'm Tanya Lozano again, the granddaughter of Guadalupe Lozano, the niece of Rudy Lozano, and the daughter of Emma Lozano. I would like to thank Freedom Road Socialist Organization for this recognition, but also for standing for the oppressed and people of color everywhere. We believe that it is the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression that must put forth the freedom charter we need that unites the Black and Brown, Indigenous, and Asian community, the communities of color that make up the new majority. Slavery was a product of colonialism and white supremacy, and we must remember that we must fight those tendencies in ourselves and everywhere. Now, my mom, Emma, and my dad, Reverend Slim Coleman, are pastors, so I wanted to start with a Bible verse. John chapter 15, verses 4 through 6. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit by itself unless it remains in the vine, neither can you bear fruit unless it remains on the vine. Unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches, the one who remains in me and I in him. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are gathered up, thrown into the fire, and burned. Before my mom and my dad were pastors, they came from movements for justice. My dad, a Black Panther, and my mom active in left organizations. Centro de Acción Social Autónomo, the CP, the Committee of Correspondence, COC, IPO, with my uncle Rudy Lozano. And my mom has always said she's as much a Christian as she is a communist. So I come from those before me that planted and continue to plant the seeds of liberation for the next generation and generations after that. Thank you so much for this award, and we look forward to continuing to work together for the equality and justice we all deserve. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you so much, Tanya Lozano, for your powerful and also for reminding us of the importance of community care in this fight. We are nothing if we don't remember that our roots are critical to our survival, and we can't continue unless we take care of each other. So thank you so much for that. Next, we also want to celebrate art and culture this evening, as they are just as critical a part of resistance as anything else. And this evening's cultural performance, I would like to introduce Reno Cruz. Reno Cruz is a songwriter and producer of Cuban descent. He works closely with a wide variety of artists in Chicago's DIY music community and is committed to harnessing the power of music for personal and communal healing. Please welcome Reno Cruz.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. I first wanted to say I'm very inspired by watching everybody. I've been to a few of these events pre-COVID, and it's just cool to see people doing real work in our community be celebrated. I hope I can offer something that feels healing and that promotes some kind of good feeling for everybody here, because I know it's been a hard year. This first song is inspired by Bossa Nova, which is the music that arose out of Brazil in the mid-20th century. And it's about, kind of the power of love and the power that love has to inspire us and to, get us out of bed every morning, because, we're all in this together. So here goes. Step on my heart, I wonder who you are, I wonder where it's gonna be, 'cause I know the hour, but not the day or time. I wonder if lucky if it lasts a week. I will give you the very greatest part of me. Oh, love is a girl and a car and a key and a wave. Oh, love is important if we can get out of the way. Oh, love is the thing where you bend and don't break. Why not tonight? I wanna feel your light. I wanna feel you close to me. 'Cause I wanna fight the whole entire world. I wonder if you'd be my girl. Not to keep. But lucky if it lasts a week. I will give you the very greatest part of me. Oh, love is a girl and a car and a key and a way. Oh, love is important if we can get out of the way. Oh, love is the thing where you bend and don't break. Don't break. Thank you very much. That was called Love is a Wave. The next song, yay, jazz hands. The next song is, it's called No Soy de Aquí, Ni Soy de Allá. It's an Argentinian folk song that kind of paints a picture of the kind of world that I think we all want to live in. A world where, I don't think we have time for me to translate the whole lyrics, but the writer of the song, Facundo Cabral, he's basically painting a picture of a life where we're living in community with each other and supporting each other and living in communion with nature. And I think even though that's not where we are right now as a world, that's where we can be eventually if we keep this up. So this is No Soy de Aquí, Ni Soy de Allá. Me gusta el sol, Alicia y las palomas, el buen cigarro y las malas señoras, saltar paredes y abrir las ventanas cuando llora una mujer. Me gusta el vino tanto como las flores y los conejos, pero no los fractores, el pan casero y la voz de Dolores y mojándome en los pies. No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir, y ser feliz es mi kilo de identidad. No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir, y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. Me gusta estar tirado siempre y la arena, en bicicleta perseguir la manuela, todo el tiempo para ver las estrellas con la María triada. No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá. No tengo edad ni porvenir. Y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá. No tengo edad ni porvenir. Y ser feliz es el color de identidad. Thank you very much. My name is Reno Cruz, and we'll continue with the event now.
Thank you so much, Reno. That was amazing. Thank you for your performance. So up next, I have the honor of introducing Acelyn Pulley, a woman who frankly needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Acelyn Pulley is a leading activist with Black Lives Matter Chicago. She is also co-director of the Chicago Torture Justice Center. Chicago Magazine, appropriately, named her one of 2020's 6 Chicagoans of the Year, the organizer, for her role in the rebellion. Give it up, everybody, for Acelyn.
Hi, thank you. Also, shout out to your posters. I love them. I have the honor of introducing you all to Regina Russell. Regina is a beautiful and extraordinary human being. She is the mother of torture survivor Tanya Russell. She is a union organizer with SEIU and is also co-chair of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. She has been a leader, a champion, and a warrior for many years, and especially this year. Through her advocacy for her son, including writing a fantastic article in Truth Out detailing the horrors of COVID for all incarcerated people, including medically vulnerable people like her son, Regina has led the movement in making connections between calls to defund the police and linking that with the demand to defund the carceral system as a whole. She has been a constant presence demanding the urgent need to release all torture survivors now, especially all medically vulnerable people from all prisons, jails, detention centers. Regina's son, Taman, has been incarcerated for over 19 years and was tortured by officers who trained under John Burge. Her son is medically vulnerable. I ask viewers right now who may be unfamiliar with his case to go to truthout.com after this and search Regina Russell to read her article. Regina is receiving the Harry Hayward Award on behalf of the Chicago Alliance for their historic work this year. This summer, one of the largest uprisings, and many have said the largest uprising in history, occurred with over 26 million people taking part in protest against the continued extrajudicial murders, torture, and brutality experienced by Black people in this country at the hands of police, as well as all of the apparatuses that conspired to uphold white supremacy. But specifically, the Alliance successfully organized over 100,000 people who took to the streets in the Midwest this summer. This was kicked off by the National Day of Action, which was called for and occurred on May 30th. This was after months of the Alliance leading regular car caravans in protest demanding the immediate release of all incarcerated people due to COVID. On May 30th, over 30,000 Chicagoans took to the streets in response to the Day of Action, resulting in the city's largest action held this summer. And this included Chicago's largest car caravan to date, which had over 5,000 cars in participation. The work of the Alliance, with Regina's leadership, has resulted in Chicago helping to lead the country by having some of the largest actions in response to the continued crisis of policing and police murders of Black people. And this was then sustained over a period of 5 weeks, where we had regular protests in all areas of the city, and in particular of note is areas of the city that were very commonly and are commonly known as racist havens, actually took part in actions. In Harry Haywood's speech in 1977, he said, "We had seen that the Black liberation struggle would be, as it had always been, a spark, a catalyst, pushing forward the whole working class and the people's struggle in the U.S., far from simply being a struggle for reforms, as the revisionists claimed." And we see this as evidenced in the work of Regina and the work of the Chicago Alliance this year, by taking a leading role in the movement for Black liberation, through calls for Free Them All, for CPAC Now, and an end to violent, racist, white supremacist actions. It is my great honor to present the Harry Hayward Award to Regina Russell.
Thank you, Acelyn. That was wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the Road Socialist Organization on behalf of Chicago Alliance Against Racism and Political Oppression for this award. This organization has been fighting since 1973 for justice for Black and brown people, and was formed out of the campaign to free Angela Davis and all political prisoners. The Alliance demands the justice system to free all incarcerated people who were tortured by the police or wrongly convicted. I know this because my son, Tanya Russell, was wrongly convicted 20 years ago for a crime he did not commit. The police ignored my statement that Tanya was home when the shooting occurred and that they falsely accused him of. They had no physical evidence linking him to the crime. No weapon was found. The car identified in the shooting was never found. They convicted him on the word of 2 unreliable witnesses who said Tanya was driving the car and shooting at them. The sergeant that signed off that night on his arrest was Raymond Madigan, a part of the Burge gang of torturers. That's why I believe in passing CPAC, we had a community control of the police. Black and brown people would hold the police accountable for the crimes against Black and brown people. We would have the power to decide who polices our community and how they are policed. Stand with us shoulder to shoulder. We can make a difference if we are not faint of heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Regina, for your powerful story and words. We stand in solidarity with you and in support of Regina. For those of us watching, if you could write #CPACNow in the chat, we would greatly appreciate that. Another reminder before we continue with our program, please make sure to mention us on Twitter if you are watching using #PeoplesThanksgiving2020. Don't forget that this is a fundraiser event. You can use the link in the chat to donate or the link right up above, www.tinyurl.com/PPLTHX2020. There's also a sign-in sheet circulating in the chat. If you could take a moment and fill that out, that would be wonderful. It's been a great program so far, and we're going to continue on this evening. I have the great honor of introducing Nadia Al-Yafai. Nadia is a youth leader and organizer who helped lead the campaign to end racial profiling at the Arab American Action Network. Nadia dedicates her time to fighting for people both here and in the Middle East. Thank you so much. Please welcome Nadia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nadia Al-Yafai. I was once a member of the youth program at the Arab American Action Network, and now I'm a staff youth organizer. Today is a special day, and I'm so glad everyone can join us to talk about this busy year and be able to honor and recognize the work of many organizations. One of these organizations in which I will be honoring today is Good Kids Mad City. Good Kids Mad City is an organization led by Black and brown youth who are determined to fight to end violence in our cities, including racist police violence. With this year's pandemic and uprising protests, Good Kids Mad City led in providing services to its community with food pantries, school supplies, meals to families, and resources like mental health discussions. They not only strive to provide a safe place for others in the community, but they are also engaged in the political scene as well. During Chicago's Black Lives Matter protests, Good Kids Mad City was at the front lines. One of these protests included the attempted takedown of the Columbus statue, where Chicago Police Department attacked one of their members, knocking their teeth out and injuring their face. Their members were attacked and harassed by the Chicago Police Department during many of these protests, but that did not stop them as they continued to show up and speak out. This wasn't the first time one of these young people were at the front lines. During the protests to win justice for Laquan McDonald, Good Kids Mad City was there, supporting CPAC and the Chicago Alliance, demanding action and calling for justice to be served against the murderer cop Van Dyke. I actually had the honor of being on a panel with one of these youth from Good Kids Mad City, shout out to Andrea, and I was able to learn more in depth about their campaign work to fight against injustice and violence in the city of Chicago. The importance of youth organizations such as Good Kids Mad City is that their campaigns were created because the youth realized that they were directly impacted and targeted by law enforcement and these racist institutions that are put in place to oppress us. It is important to recognize that youth are powerful and their voices are powerful as well. These youth risk their lives daily so that they can provide and create for their community. Through revolution and resistance, Good Kids Mad City is creating change, and they won't stop until liberation is won. With this being said, I am honored to present the Angela Y. Davis Award to India Jackson from Good Kids Mad City. India is a 19-year-old queer Black woman from the south side of Chicago. She's a sophomore in college and believes in radical love and equality. We are honoring India for the work in continuing to fight back against the systems and people who are put in place to oppress. We recognize the leadership shown during the protests this summer that forced the city to take down the statues of Columbus and the work in the campaigns for CPAC and to defund the Chicago police.
Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to accept this award on behalf of the Kids Mad City. The work we do here in the city is purely out of love. Radical love for ourselves, our communities, and everybody involved. We have been beaten, brutalized, and arrested by the police, but we're still out here on the front lines, still fighting for everybody, not just us. And I want to highlight that it's just not me doing work. It's all of us. We all do this. We all have love for our communities. And I would just like to say that I'm very proud of each and every one of you, and I love each and every one of you for the work that you guys do and will continue to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, India. Definitely huge shout out to Good Kids Mad City. I love Good Kids Mad City. Shout out to y'all. Keep up the amazing work. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to get some more interactions going in the chat. I know people in Chicago are all about their neighborhood, all about where they're from. So I want to see where people are from. So just drop your neighborhood. Albany Park, I'm going to go run in the chat and drop my neighborhood in there. But just drop where you're from. We want to know where people are tuning in from. And if you're not in Chicago, definitely let us know where you're watching from. So up next, we have some more culture. I'm going to introduce Anna Mclogan. Anna is a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and Freedom Road Socialist Organization. They're a library worker, a grocery worker, and a poet. They don't have any written work to sell at the moment. Everybody give it up for Anna.
Hey everyone, I'm going to be reading you some poems today. I always like to say before I read some poetry, if you like poetry, you're going to like this. If you don't like poetry, it's a good time for a bathroom break. It's going to be like 5 minutes, so go ahead and take that if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to start off with some poems. Some of these, a couple you might have heard before because I've read them at events in the past, but I hope you get something new out of them. What the rich can look forward to in the future is embracing the quiet dignity of a compost pile. When they learn to hold this, I will learn to set my malice down. I do not hate for who they are, but what they do. Once we have retrieved the taken, begun the sending back, I will not fault a handless pile of consequence. Once invisibility of hands is rendered slight, once nowhere else to look but down into, I can see them shrinking. In each mass gathered, rendered less by us and all our ghosts. Still here today is no time for forgiveness, and not even close. What if the dead are poking the ground, and that is why it's shaking? If they've seen what you have, if they didn't cross their arms and turn or make themselves look busy, if instead they thought to punch their sky, seep out forming holes between the grains of what we'd call a bottom, come as fruit, flower, seed, weed, smoke carried, and the sound it makes a song of dying, too much dying, too much pain for profit here and now, and we know the song so well some cannot hear it, how you can't really smell yourself, just sniff and seem a certain way to people, maybe too in smells they speak. In such a state, the frenzied conscious would be consequence of noticing. Sense of against would lurk with reason in our tones and tiny movements, and rise in each of us so fast it seemed to spread, and pour out in all forms and substances that would not be the one to make it right, until hand meets hand and rises up to take, or we climb inside the earth left here to shake. Any kind of shaking, I say any kind of shaking. Yeah, the dance floor of my palms will embrace your form of quaking. Flutters, jerks, and bounces, shivers, flails, and tosses, whines and grinds and wake-up calls and ticks. Like a leaf or like a table, an emulsion or a thrown-off scent. For the time it takes to be worth taking, I do not need a certain pace, but I need any kind of shaking. This next one's about urgency. We do not have time. It has been taken. We do not have time. It's being stored. We do not have time. Nobody has it, but there is somebody standing at the door. We do not have time. I want it back. We do not have time to write it timeless. We do not have time to sully meaning or to starve or spend nights sleepless. We do not have time to start it over. We do not have time in this here order. We do not have time to sell or set aside. We do not have time to wait until perfected or to cherish imperfection or deride. We do not have time, we'll never have it. We do not have time, it's not so tragic. We do not have time, the dead are tired. We do not have time, the living liars, gutted gears from all the clock towers, now metaphors for spies, for siloed ammunition, fear of eyes. We do not have time for their denial. We do not have time to hold a trial or to add another note into the file. We already know that what we have to do will take a while. We do not have time to shout each other down. We do not have time to not be shouting. We do not have time to mess around. We do not have time, and when it's over, and it's never really over, they explain, but when the ones in motion ascend the tower station with intention to reclaim and orchestrate a whole new situation, having time will have to have a whole new name that sounds more like dimension than it does like exploitation, to be used by those of us who may happen to remain. I got two more for you. They're both short. This next one I wrote during the uprising. When a mouth opens, the city pulls teeth, paper cuts the tongue, cries lemon juice on where the blood comes from. The sound in atomic precision cannot be undone. And this last poem I want to specifically dedicate to anyone who's been working throughout this pandemic, especially any frontline workers and especially anyone who's gone on strike. The gratitude that I have for you is so immense, and it's a lot different than the kind of thank yous that bosses would bury us in or drown us in. So this is my response at the beginning of the pandemic to when everybody was saying thank you to the essential workers. How dare they speak of gratitude when they can't know? If all were right with language, such a sound would burn the lips that kiss an ass but never eat the shit. No need to smile through the taste of it. It's this heat under my ribs. It's desperate. What it means we live, that all of us, I cannot even look straight at this. How do they try to sell it? And who am I speaking to? All I mean is thank you.
So much for that wonderful performance, and I want to also thank you for acknowledging our essential workers, our frontline workers, those who have been on strike in the past year, especially in the context of a pandemic. Those actions are even more powerful, and thank you for sharing your art as an act of resistance. We appreciate it very much. So we're gonna keep our program moving this evening. I want to introduce Colby Guillory. Colby is a co-chair of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Colby was on the front line on May 30th, standing up to the violence of CPD at Trump Tower. He has been a prominent figure in the rebellion that started on May 30th, helping to lead rallies and marches for an elected civilian police accountability council, CPAC. He is a member of FRSO and will speak about the past year of struggle and the lessons to be learned from the rebellion. Please welcome Colby.
Hello. So, Vladimir Lenin said that there are decades when nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen. By that math, 2020 has been centuries long. It's been a year of crisis and uprising, a year in which it became clear that U.S. imperialism has been dying for a long time, both internationally and domestically. In January, the Trump regime assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq. Soleimani was a leader in the fight against ISIS, and his death sparked protests of hundreds of thousands across the Middle East, as well as solidarity demonstrations here in the U.S. Here in Chicago, over 1,000 people marched through downtown and nearly took Lakeshore Drive while being physically attacked by CPD. America committed this war crime to reassert itself as the world police, and the masses internationally responded by calling for an end to the U.S. presence in the Middle East. This year has also seen continued struggle against U.S.-backed regimes. Palestinians have continued to demand freedom from Israeli occupation, and millions across the world have boycotted and called for divestment and sanctions against the apartheid state of Israel. Our Kasamas from the Philippines are demanding an end to the terror law imposed by the fascist Duterte, as well as an end to U.S. military support of the Duterte regime. Recently, the people of Bolivia voted to oust the fascist, anti-indigenous government that came into power through a U.S.-backed coup last year in November. Around the world, in Puerto Rico, Chile, Iraq, Colombia, Somalia, and many others, U.S. imperialism is falling. The weakness of the U.S. has been proved beyond a shadow of a doubt by the COVID-19 pandemic. While other countries such as China, Vietnam, and Cuba enacted lockdowns, built hospitals, and ensured that their people had the resources to stay home, America bailed out corporations while giving nearly nothing to the people. The profit-centered response from the government has resulted in over 250,000 coronavirus deaths in the U.S., compared to less than 5,000 deaths in China where the virus was first identified. The people whose labor keeps the system alive have been dubbed essential workers, but the government and the employers have treated these workers as expendable by taking little or no precautions for their safety. Workers have had to fight for PPE, sick leave, sanitary work environments, and other measures that would have been taken for granted in a country that values human life. Service workers and healthcare workers, most of whom are Black, Latinx, and Filipino, went on strike at UIC to demand safe working conditions and an end to racist policies this summer. CTU threatened to strike if the city opened schools with in-person teaching, a strategy which would have failed due to the city's complete lack of preparation toward making sure that schools didn't become COVID hotspots. In a country that doesn't care about us, workers have used strikes and other actions to take care of each other. It's no surprise that the virus has hit Black, Latinx, and indigenous communities the hardest. Nationally oppressed people are the most likely to be essential workers and least likely to have access to quality medical care. So of course, Black, Latinx, and indigenous people are dying of COVID at nearly 3 times the rate of whites. Decades of neoliberal disinvestment from Black communities has resulted in the closure of dozens of hospitals and clinics on the south and west sides of Chicago. The systemic racism of America has turned the virus into a weapon of white supremacy. This is especially clear in jails, prisons, and immigration detention centers, which have always been hazardous to the health of the people imprisoned there. Mass incarceration is a decades-old tool of oppression against Black communities. Police have used torture and frame-up tactics to convict political prisoners like Assata Shakur, Jalil Muntakim, and Leonard Peltier, and later used those same methods against people like Gerald Reed, Salman Russell, the Hernandez brothers, and hundreds of known survivors. The fight to free political prisoners, torture survivors, and the wrongfully convicted has been ramped up this year because of the coronavirus. It is impossible to maintain social distance in a cage, especially when prison guards spread the virus and wardens deny the prisoners PPE, sanitation, and basic necessities like clean water. Early on in the pandemic, thousands of people joined car caravans and virtual actions around the demand to free them all. And when we say free them all, we do indeed mean free them all. Those who have been kidnapped and locked up in prisons, jails, and immigration detention centers need to be set free. And those of us on the outside must continue to mobilize in greater and greater numbers until that happens. Killings by police and other racists with guns are another feature of American racism. The militias who used to terrorize indigenous people and enslaved Africans now patrol cities wearing badges and blue uniforms. After the murders of George Floyd in Minnesota and Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, millions of people took to the streets in all 50 states and around the world to fight for an end to police terror. Legalized lynchings have been a police practice since police have existed in the U.S., so every city has George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor's. In Chicago, Rekia Boyd, Pierre Laurie, Ronnie Man Johnson, Flint Farmer, and so many others were killed by CPD and denied justice. The uprising came out of the rage of people who have been exploited, dehumanized, and terrorized for centuries. Local and federal police across the country responded to protests with tear gas, beatings, and mass arrest. More and more people have learned that the police are enemies of the lives and well-being of Black people, which is why the demands of the Black Led Rebellion have mainly focused on the police. 2 demands in particular, the demand for community control of the police and the demand to defund the police, have taken center stage. Calls to defund the police come from the recognition of what decades of neoliberal policies, which means defunding everything except police and prisons, has done to Black communities. We need schools, we need hospitals, we need homes, we need food, we do not need police. Both capitalist parties oppose defunding the police because police protect and serve capitalists and their property. Some local governments have bent to mass pressure and taken tiny amounts from their police budgets or made empty promises about police reform. These promises or reforms have been walked back in less than a year because capitalists only make concessions to maintain power. They don't actually mean it when they say that they're going to give us these things that we demand. So in order to see the changes we want and to make those changes permanent, we need to take power away from capitalists. That's why we link the demand to defund the police to the demand for community control of the police. If we want police to stop killing us, we need to take control of their budget and policies. We need to be the ones to defund the police. We, the people, need to hold police accountable and work towards a world without police. No politicians will make the changes that we need to see. Last month's election, particularly the removal of Donald Trump, showed the results of the rebellion. Record high voter turnout showed that people are more politically engaged than they have been in a long time. But the lack of a party representing the interests of the working class meant that this election was a choice between covert racism and overt racism. Black organizers overcame systemic voter suppression to remove Trump, and the Democratic Party has shown its gratitude by blaming its poor election results on the Black liberation movement. Calls to defund the police don't alienate people from the movement, but police impunity and neoliberal policies are alienating people from the Democratic Party. As we move into the Biden administration with potential cabinet picks like Rahm Emanuel, who closed dozens of schools and hospitals and covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald, it is clear that the struggle continues. With the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, tens of millions of unemployed and facing eviction, thousands dying every day of COVID-19, and rampant racist violence from police and fascists emboldened by Trump, the Democrats are committed to helping corporations at the expense of people's lives and well-being. That's why Freedom Road Socialist Organization is committed to building a party for the working class. U.S. monopoly capitalism is dying, but it won't be dead until we kill it. As we honor those who have devoted themselves to the struggle this year, we should also focus on where the struggle needs to go. This year, solidarity has been building between the working class movements and the movements for Black, Latinx, and Indigenous liberation. The ruling class has spent centuries sabotaging solidarity because they know how much of a threat we pose when we fight together. The strategy of Freedom Road is an alliance between the movement of the working class and movements for the liberation of oppressed people. Revolution is the only way forward, and unity of exploited and oppressed people is the only way to win a revolution. So over the coming years, we will continue building and connecting these movements until we're strong enough to overthrow this system and build a socialist society that values people instead of profit. This year has been tough, but the fight will continue because we still have a world to win, and we have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you.
Everybody, give it up at home in the chat for Kobe. Kobe came up here and dropped the mic. Thank you so much, Kobe, for your remarks. Everybody, just give it up. That was incredible. Up next, I'm going to introduce another member of Freedom Road Socialist Organization, who you all may know and love, Joe Ashbaker. Joe Ashbaker is a longtime leader in FRSO in Chicago. He's also a member of SCIU 73 and went on strike because he works at UIC. So give it up, everybody, for Joe.
Thank you, Jazz. And it's very hard to follow that speech by Kobe. You were really tearing it up, comrade. And of course, I've got the least popular task in the entire event, which is I'm going to lean on people to make more contributions. You know, Fight Back News reports on the fights that often don't get a lot of attention in the corporate media or even in the left media that have the largest distribution. We report on the struggles, for example, of the victims and survivors of police crimes. Or, you know, we try to explain the meaning of the UIC strike for our lives. Why do we need funding? We mainly publish stories online daily. You know, check out fightbacknews.org. And, you know, the expenses aren't much for maintaining a website. But we still see the need for a print edition of the paper, even during a pandemic, because, and this may surprise some of you who get most of your media digitally, many workers do not get their news from the internet. They rely on newspaper. And we're building a movement for socialism that sees the workers as the class that has the ability to really change the world. So we're trying to get $2,500 out of this event. I want to start by thanking the anonymous donor who dropped $500 into the basket. Thank you. Also, my comrades and longtime friends, Richard Berg and Dr. Jean Engelkmeyer, dropped in another 500. I'm looking to see if there's anyone out there who can come near to 500. I know, you know, normally when we're all in person, I can rely on people going to the bar so I can kind of hold your attention for a while. But I can't do that. But I'm gonna ask for it. And if nobody can do another 500, how about 250? And if you can, just drop that in the comments section of the on the Facebook event. I can see from some people who have already written, Comrade Alex Kogan dropped in $150. Erica Anna, 100. My former roommate, Jay Berger, dropped in $50. Charles, I'm missing the amount, sorry. 20. Hanky from the Alliance, $20. Lotta from the U.S. Palestinian Community Network dropped in 25. And I'm just, I can't do like Frank does and tell you that I'm locking the doors until we soak you. But I'm going to just appeal once again to Frank Chapman is dropping 50 in the basket. Thank you, comrade. All right, we're on our way. We're getting pretty close to 2,000, but I want to try to get out of this event with, so Kathleen Jensen, my union sister, dropped 250 in the basket. That's getting us very close to 2,000. And Zach Schultz, a UPS worker, now of course it's peak right now, so I'm sure he's getting a lot of overtime. He dropped in $100. Anybody else who's got a couple of dollars to rub together still, despite COVID, please give what you can, and we'll keep getting the word out to workers and oppressed people. Excellent. We've just topped $2,000 in the fundraising effort. I'm gonna get off the stage, and how do you drop it in the basket? You tell us, and there's a link, and we'll give you the link. My dear sister Diane just asked me. We'll give you the link. We'll send it to you. There it is. There's the GoFundMe.
Yes, to access the GoFundMe quickly, just go to tinyurl.com/CLTHX20.
And I'm going to get off the stage. Thank you, Val and Jazz and everyone.
Thank you so much. So I love seeing the fundraising numbers go up. Please, any contribution is helpful, whether it's $5, $10. I don't have $500, but I most certainly will be putting into the basket what I can at the moment. All right. So presenting our next award this evening, I would like to introduce Marissa Allegretti. Marissa is the Midwest coordinator of the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. NAFCON has worked on countless cases of labor trafficking from the Philippines. As a healthcare worker and an organizer, Marissa knows firsthand the social, political, and economic conditions behind such exploitation. Marissa was involved as a key supporter of the nurses at UI Hospital and spoke at the rally on the first day of the strike. Please welcome Marissa.
Thank you. It's my honor to introduce Doris Carroll of INA for tonight. Doris is a registered nurse of 37 years, working full-time, specializing in HIV and primary care on the west side of Chicago. She serves as president of the Illinois Nurses Association, INA, and vice president affiliate of the Illinois AFL-CIO. She is a founder of the Nurses Take DC movement, a nationwide grassroots movement to pass federal legislation for safe patient limits, mandating a safe limit of patients a nurse should care for, known as staffing ratios. At the state level, she has collaborated with her union and other nursing organizations to support nurse staffing ratios by attempting to pass Illinois legislation HB 2604 last year. Staffing is still a problem in Illinois and the rest of the country. As a result, nurse staffing is now in crisis as they battle COVID-19 pandemic. She continues to actively work in the fight against COVID-19 at her hospital in Illinois and across the country with her activism and leadership. As a co-chief steward at UIC, her INA team led nurses to victory in the first ever nurses strike in INA's 40-year history at UIC by achieving safe staffing and PPE language in their CBA, as well as being the first hospital in the country to provide hazard pay and universal masking early in the pandemic. It was a turning point in my life as a Filipina immigrant community organizer when Doris invited me to speak in the first day of the UIC nurses strike. I was at first dumbfounded when I went up the stage to see hundreds of Filipino nurses striking. It was really my first time to see that phenomenon. With Filipinos making up approximately 1/3 of the UIC nurses, I was glad to see their militants. Most, if not all of them, said it is their first time to strike ever in their life. Some of them are already about to retire. They have not even marched or strike or attended rallies in the Philippines to kick out the former dictator, but here they're able to do it. So it's not too late. It was the exploitation and oppressive situation that united everyone to strike. But most of all, it was because of the leadership of Doris Carroll. I am honored to present tonight the Escalaria Kia Award. Salaria Kia Award. Salaria was a black nurse in Harlem in the 1930s who fought against racist treatment and segregation at her hospital. She was an American nurse and desegregation activist who volunteered in the Spanish Civil War and the Second World War. And even during the Spanish Civil War, she was the only African-American nurse working in the Abraham Lincoln Battalion. So tonight, I am very honored to present the Salaria Kia Award to Doris Carroll. Congratulations, Doris. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Nerissa. What a beautiful, beautiful introduction. I really appreciate it. I was so happy to meet you at our strike event. And I would really like to thank the Road Socialist Organization for recognizing my work. I'm honored to be here, especially along with the honored local activists and organizations here tonight. But of course, I didn't achieve this victory against my employer on my own. It was my team, my co-chief steward, Paul Pater, and the remaining board members, Lori Christopher, who worked day and night for months, beginning with the start of the pandemic in mid-March. Our skillful negotiating team, led by Dan Shansky and Matt Bartmus and the Illinois Nurses Association organizers, Dulce Leyva, Hector Rosa, Brock Mead, and Morgan Toms, worked side by side with nurses, Filipino, African American, Hispanic, white nurses. We have an incredible organization of nurses, and all of them led us to win the best contract in the city, state, and I'll dare say it'll beat any national union hospital contract that I know of. But I'd also like to recognize Diane Palmer and SEIU and organizers and staff as well. We would never have such success without the simultaneous strike efforts of two unions, over 5,000 workers
crippling the university's operations to manage and provide safe patient care. How did we accomplish this? During a pandemic, we demanded daily phone calls with the administrators. We demanded universal masking before the CDC and the World Health Organization recommended it. We got it. We demanded COVID hazard pay for every nurse, whether she worked or he worked in the ICU, in the emergency room. This was won by every nurse across the organization. But they didn't listen immediately. They only and finally listened when we went to the media, exposing their unsafe practices of providing inadequate PPE, resulting in, at that time, 12 nurses infected. That was March 27th. That night, the hospital stated by email that every worker was to get a surgical mask, and no matter where we worked. But that wasn't enough, because as more nurses fell ill, many of us were working short, and the risks to caring for our patients became known. And then 2 nurses died, 2 nurses of color, Joyce LeBlanc and Maria Lopez, will be forever remembered. What happened to them shouldn't have ever happened. We demanded hazard pay, and we won that. Before negotiations even started, I cried like I am now, hearing the stories that my nurses suffered through. Then they started dying, and it was clear that management wasn't listening. Because after the first surge of the pandemic, after they called us heroes, they then failed to treat us as human beings with the right to a safe workplace and the right to have PPE. Our nurses were dying, and they treated us in negotiations as if the pandemic and their failings never happened. Nurses authorized a strike even before we saw the wage proposals. 995 nurses voted to authorize a strike as opposed to 12. We were not going to have another nurse die at our hospital. I know the fight isn't over as we witness the daily struggles in this current COVID surge. It is now worse than it was in March and April. We know that. But nurses will continue to care for their patients and for you. We just want to be treated as human beings. We are not the heroes you call us. We are warriors. We all are, and we will not fail. We will survive this fight, my sisters and brothers. This I know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doris. We are sending you so much love. Thank you so much for that really, really amazing, powerful speech. Thank you. Up next, I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Ms. Stacy Davis Gates. Stacy is the Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union and Chair of United Working Families. Last year, she helped lead the victorious strike of the Chicago Public Schools. Throughout the pandemic, Stacy and the CTU have fought the school board and the mayor for the safety of teachers and workers, as well as children and their families. So everybody give it up for Stacy.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate being here. Thank you, Doris, for giving us your heart and being vulnerable and fighting hard for people that matters in this work. I'm here to give the Sylvia Woods Award. Sylvia Woods is the first chairman of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. She was also the head of the Chicago Committee to Free Angela Davis, and she was a proud unionist here in Chicago. And it is important to center these awards in the people whose names are on them. And as I start to talk about Diane Palmer, president of SEAU 73, you'll understand why. Diane is relatively new to the Chicago labor space. However, you wouldn't know that because ever since Diane has been here, 73 has been on a picket line. So I would say that Diane is one of the most dynamic, one of the most bold, and one of the most refreshing labor leaders that Chicago has ever witnessed. And I am happy that she's here. But it's not just Diane, right? Because we know that we do need transformative leaders. We do need individuals who are willing to lead in very difficult situations. But it's how they lead. It isn't that Diane is just a Black woman leading. Identity only goes so far. It is the type of Black woman and the values that she's tethered to. So I'll say this. The 2019 strike that CTU was on would not have been as monumental and impactful without Diane. Bottom line. Her union, the people in her union believed that we deserved, right? That we deserved a nurse in every school. We deserved a social worker in every school. That our families who are living in temporary situations also deserved housing. And then Diane doubled down on that with her union a few months back when she went on strike with Doris and her union and said, not only do people deserve dignity, they deserve to work and return to their families safely. That you can sing songs for me every night. You can turn the light on for me. You can clap for me. But you also have to ensure that the infrastructure that is necessary to keep people safe has to be there. And she made a demand. And 73 continues to make demands. They make demands that are around the humanity and the dignity of the people, the women, the Black people, the brown people, the men, the working class families that are a part of that union space. This pandemic has laid bare gross inequity that has been there for a long time. But because we cannot run away and involve ourselves in recreation or in bar hopping or in, working around the clock or sitting in traffic, that we have to sit and watch now the long lines at food banks. We see the murder of Black men on television. We see, too, though, the resistance of unions like Diane's, unions like Doris saying that we deserve. We just saw a successful strike at a nursing home come to a close yesterday. Those things don't happen without the bold leadership of Diane, who went first in this pandemic and pushed the envelope and said, we deserve. We deserve. Not what we can win, not what we think is possible, or even this, not what they want to give us, but what we deserve. And we deserve our humanity. And I am deeply appreciative of the fact that Diane is leading from the space of what we deserve and our dignity. So I want to say thank you for your leadership that centers the humanity of people, that isn't afraid to say Black, isn't afraid to say equity, and isn't afraid to say justice. Because that is the type of bold leadership that will transform the labor movement, that will transform workspaces, and that will transform our city. So I want to say, Diane, thank you for being a warrior, a brilliant leader, a vulnerable leader. And when I say vulnerable, leading with her heart, leading with her experience, right? And leading in a way that includes others. 73 is a revitalized, strong, badass union because this woman said, we're going to lead from our values. So without further ado, I would like to give Diane Palmer, president of SEIU, Local 73, the Sylvia Woods Award, another kick-ass woman who would not take no for an answer and who fought for what she deserved as well. Diane.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I sure do appreciate all of your kind words. I'm so honored to be with you all this evening. I am Diane Palmer, the proud president of SEIU Local 73. The officers and members of Local 73 just completed our first ever virtual annual meeting earlier today. We realized to be a bold, proud, and nimble organization to accomplish the principles we set out, that we have to have partners. We realize that we cannot do it alone. So much love and respect to the INA, led by the courageous president, Doris Carroll, and Chief Steward, Paul Pater. And I can't ever end this without talking about the mighty CTU with their 25,000 teachers that stood alongside of our once invisible 6,000 workers in the Chicago school system. Stacy Davis Gates, with her leadership and her leadership team of President Jesse Sharpley and Crystal Johnson, gave me the strength and the courage to really stand up to the mayor of the city of Chicago and to stand up for our workers, because I felt throughout that whole campaign that they had my back and they had the back of the SEIU workers. I'm proud of the relationships that we have built, where our partners have shown up time and time again. Again, I recognize the famous words of the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. I want to be considered a worker. I want SEIU Local 73 members to be considered workers. And I want them to show up and show out every time. We are so proud to stand with all of you. We have a lot of work to do. There's way too much sorrow, but working together, we can accomplish it all. I humbly accept the Sylvia Woods Award on behalf of the officers of SEIU, Jeffrey Howard, Executive Vice President, Science Mellis, Executive Vice President, and mighty Joe Richards, our Secretary Treasurer. Without them, I would be nothing. And this work would be even harder to do, but not impossible. So to all the recipients, continue the work. This life is worth fighting for. And Stacy, I will say it loud and proud. Black, equity, and justice. Solidarity to all of you.
Thank you so much, Diane Palmer. Snap, snap, snaps. That was amazing. Diane, every time I hear you speak, I'm always like, snap, snap. Thank you so much for your words, your leadership, and your power. You are really inspirational. You inspire so many of us in the city. Stacy as well in the CTU. I want you all to leave some love in the comments for CTU and SEIU 73. I feel like anybody who goes on strike has so much courage, and we have to honor that, especially the folks who are on the front lines fighting, in schools, on campus at UIC. So definitely, drop some love in the comments. We want to really uplift, the strong, powerful unions in this city. But that was our last award for the evening. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We have a couple of announcements just to keep you all updated on what's next. So first, coming up actually next Sunday, December 13th, the Alliance will be having a people's hearing on police crimes and torture, also online, also on Zoom actually, at 3 p.m. I will be sure to drop the link to the Facebook event in the live stream chat. That way people can go, can sign up, and be prepared for next Sunday. You definitely do not want to miss this event. We're going to be hearing, stories from people who have been tortured, stories from families who have been fighting for their loved ones to come home for crimes they did not commit. We're going to hear from folks from the Chicago 400 about the struggle that people without homes are currently going through in the city. So you definitely do not want to miss that. and that's going to be next Sunday, December 13th at 3 p.m. We also have a couple of Freedom Road events coming up. So January 17th, there will be an event on COVID. The time, I think, is to be determined. So definitely be sure to sign up, fill out the form. That way you can be updated on the time and more information about that event. But put January 17th in your calendar. And of course, our Black History Month event, we do this event every year. This year, it's going to be on February 6th at 3 p.m. And finally, speaking of workers who have gone on strike, shout out to the members of SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana for their victorious strike at Infinity Nursing Home. So they had a big victory. Their contract had major gains in wages, pandemic pay, sick days, and PPE. 700 workers went on strike, mostly Black and Latinx women. So definitely shout out to them. Thank you all so much for the work that you do on the front lines. And thank you all so much again for attending. Val, if you want to wrap it up, feel free to take it from here.
Absolutely. We do have an exciting announcement of the final tally for our donations this evening. I believe last update, this evening we raised $2,740, surpassing our goal. So thank you so much for your generosity and your contributions. Thank you for sharing the space with us this evening and taking the time to honor a lot of these powerful people and their contributions to our movement. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, your energy, your good vibes. Please take care of yourselves during this time. Please take care of others. We are nothing without our community. Thank you.